Dear learners, welcome to Module 9, Unit 30 of the MOOC course on Rural Development in India. In this video, we are going to discuss on infrastructure and education in rural India, and here you will explore how basic facilities such as roads, electricity, digital connectivity and school infrastructure influence educational access and quality in rural areas. This unit will help you to understand the vital link between development and education and its role in empowering rural communities. So why it is important? What is the importance of understanding about infrastructure and education? What is its relation? How infrastructure and education is related? If there is a good infrastructure, there will be good education. How it is related? So why we need to understand about infrastructure and education? So understanding development and education and their role in empowering rural communities is essential for learners because it will build awareness of social realities and inequalities. Education is a powerful tool that improves skills, knowledge, employment opportunity, and quality of life in rural areas. Development ensures access to infrastructure, healthcare, technology, and sustainable livelihoods. When learners understand this connection, they become more responsible, socially sensitive, and solution oriented citizens. It also encourages critical thinking about inclusive growth, digital access, and community participation. Such understanding will inspire you as a learner to contribute meaningfully towards sustainable rural transformation and national development. So first come, what is how infrastructure and education in rural area, what it is, why it is related. So education is the cornerstone of national development. Yet its reach and quality in rural India remain deeply tied to the physical, digital and human infrastructure that surrounds it. So this unit will explore the multifaceted relationship between educational infrastructure and learning outcomes in rural communities, examining what exists, what is lacking, and what must be done to bridge the gap. So designed for educators, policy students, and development practitioners, this unit offers a comprehensive survey of rural school infrastructure in India, from classroom building and sanitation to digital connectivity and community governance. It draws on government schemes, field realities, and inclusive education principles to tell the full story of rural schooling in the 21st century. So, why infrastructure matters in rural India? So, education plays a vital role in socio-economic development, serving as the primary vehicle through which individuals acquire knowledge, skills, and capabilities necessary for productive participation in society. In India, a large proportion of population, approximately 65%, continues to reside in rural areas. Therefore, the development of rural education becomes not merely desirable but essential for national progress and the realization of constitutional ideals of equality and justice. Educational development, however, is not possible without proper infrastructure. So, infrastructure in this context includes a wide range of facilities: school buildings and classrooms, libraries and laboratories, safe sanitation facilities, drinking water, electricity supply, internet connectivity, transportation networks, and adequate teacher accommodation. Each of the component, when absent or inadequate, creates specific barriers to learning. So it reduces enrollment, increase dropout, and diminishing the quality of education received by children in rural communities. In rural areas, infrastructural inadequacy directly affect enrollment, retention, the overall quality of education, and the principle of equity. Girls, children with disabilities, and children from socially marginalized communities are disproportionately affected when schools lack basic facilities such as separate toilets or ramp access. So, this unit examines the relationship between infrastructure and education in rural India comprehensively, situating it within the broader policy landscape and exploring pathways towards meaningful improvement. Now comes the concept of infrastructure in education. What is infrastructure? Why we are talking about infrastructure and why it is needed in education. So infrastructure in education refers to the basic physical and organizational facilities necessary for effective teaching, learning process to take place. It is the bedrock upon which educational quality, access and equity are built. Without adequate infrastructure, even the most dedicated teacher and motivated student face insurmountable obstacles. That means many obstacles they face to meaningful learning. The concept encompasses more than mere buildings. It is a holistic system of resources and conditions that together constitute a functional educational environment. Infrastructure in education is best understood as a composite of five interrelated dimensions. Physical structures from the visible face of educational structure, the buildings and the classrooms where learning take place. Academic facilities such as laboratories and libraries enable inquiry, research and deeper engagement with knowledge. Basic amenities including safe drinking water and sanitation facilities ensures children's health, dignity and daily comfort at school. Technological facilities encompassing ICT equipment and internet connectivity which prepare learners for participation in a digital economy. Finally, human resources, teachers, support staff, and administrative personnel constitute the living infrastructure without which physical spaces remain inert. So, proper infrastructure centers a conducive learning environment and is a prerequisite for quality education. The five dimensions, like physical structures, academic facilities, then the basic amenities, the technological facilities, and the human resources. So these are the five dimensions. I'm repeating once again: the physical structures, academic facilities, basic amenities, technological facilities, and the human resources. So these are the five dimensions which are present. When present and functional, they work together to support not just academic achievement but children's holistic development and well-being. Now, components of rural educational infrastructure. So, rural educational infrastructure can be meaningfully classified into four broad categories, each addressing a distinct set of needs. Understanding these categories helps planners, practitioners, and communities identify specific gaps and design targeted interventions. Together, these components form the complete infrastructure ecosystem that a rural school requires to deliver quality education to all children or in its catchment area. So the four categories are like physical infrastructure, academic infrastructure, the basic amenities, and the digital infrastructure. So on the physical infrastructure, you can see there are like permanent school building, adequate when well ventilated classroom, student furniture like desks and benches, boundary walls for safety, playgrounds for physical activity. So these are nothing but the physical infrastructure. Then again come the academic infrastructure. Like academic infrastructure includes different kinds of subjects, laboratories, libraries. So these are the things under academic infrastructure. Teaching aids are also included. Basic amenities like drinking water, toilets, kitchen sheds, electricity supply. So these are the basic amenities which are required as an infrastructure for rural education. Not only rural, we can also say this is for all type of education, rural and urban, but it is more, as we are talking about rural education, so we have to specifically mention, yes, these are the educational infrastructure which is required, these are the components which is required as a rural educational infrastructure. And the last but not the least is the digital infrastructure. So digital infrastructure remain one of the most challenging and underdeveloped areas of rural educational infrastructure in India today, because like computers, broadband connectivity, digital learning platform, e-content, this cannot be delivered due to lack of electricity, due to lack of connectivity. So digital infrastructure is, we can say, it is very backward in rural education. So that should be developed, that should be the aim of all government, all people in the community, to develop the digital infrastructure. Now comes the status of rural educational infrastructure in India. How the rural education is at present, in which state. So, since independence, India has made significant and commendable progress in expanding rural schooling. The number of schools has gone tremendously. Enrollment rates at the primary level have improved substantially, and various government schemes have contributed to visible improvements in physical infrastructure. The Right to Educational Act 2009 set mandatory infrastructure norms, making provisions for toilets, drinking water, and adequate classrooms a legal obligation for all recognized schools. However, persistent disparities continue to exist between rural and urban schools, while urban schools increasingly feature smart classrooms, well stocked libraries, and reliable connectivity. Many rural schools still content with dilapidated buildings, means very in a very bad conditions, like single teacher, multi-grade classrooms, and irregular or absent of electricity. The quality of what exists often falls short. Buildings may be present but properly not, or very poorly maintained. Toilets may be constructed but not functional. And computer labs may exist on paper but lack operational equipment. So these are some of the problems which is there existing at present also in rural educational in India. So common issues documented in rural school across states include multi-grade classrooms where a single teacher manage children across two or more grade levels. Simultaneously, shortage of subject-specific teachers, particularly in science, mathematics, and English. Poor maintenance of buildings leading to leaking roofs and unsafe structures. Irregular electricity supply that limits use of fans, lights, and digital equipment. And limited or absent internet access that isolates rural students from digital learning resources. The COVID-19 pandemics exposed these gaps, particularly the digital divide between rural and urban learners when schools shifted to online modes and millions of rural children were left out. So these are some of the infrastructure gaps at a glance. We can see, you see, like this is the data which has been provided. This is a snapshot of a data which is provided from national. It's a national data on school infrastructure, which is drawn from the Unified District Information System for Education (UDIS) reports, which reveals a mixed picture of progress and persistent shortfall. The following statistics highlight where rural schools stand today on key infrastructure indicators, underscoring the both achievement and areas requiring urgent attention. So you can see from here what percentage of schools with toilets are there, drinking water access are there, internet connectivity is there, electricity supply is there, computer labs is there. So what are the percentage is of infrastructure at present in school? This is a recent data from UDIS from the government where this is going on. This data is going on. So the government initiative for strengthening infrastructure. Now comes the role of government. So recognizing that quality education cannot be delivered without adequate infrastructure, the government of India has over the decades launched a series of ambitious schemes and programs aimed at transforming rural school facilities. So these initiatives have collectively resulted in significant expansion of physical infrastructure, improve amenities, or growing attention to digital readiness. Understanding the schemes is essential for any practitioner or student of education policy in India. So schemes like Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha, Midday Meal, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, Digital India Initiative. So each of these schemes built upon the lessons of its predecessors, progressively expanding the scope of government intervention. From universalizing elementary enrollment to integrating digital infrastructure across all levels of school education. Together, they represent India's sustained commitment to improving the conditions under which rural children learn. So this is a glance about the schemes like Sarva Shiksha SSA and RMSA, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan. So while SSA focused on the elementary level, class 1 to 8, that is RMSA was launched in 2009 to address the secondary level classes like 9 and 10, recognizing that many students who completed elementary school dropped out for lack of accessible secondary institutions. RMSA focused on expanding and strengthening secondary school infrastructure. Key interventions under RMSA included construction of additional classrooms, science and computer laboratories, libraries, and girl-specific facilities such as separate toilet and hostel accommodation. The scheme also promoted universal access to secondary education by funding the opening of new secondary schools in unreserved areas, particularly in rural, hilly, and tribal regions. And this is what about Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan and Digital India. So launched in 2018, the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan represents the most comprehensive and integrated approach to school education infrastructure in India's policy history. By merging the three previously separate schemes, that is SSA, RMSA, and Teacher Education Scheme, Samagra Shiksha treats schools education as a seamless continuum for pre-primary to senior secondary level, that is classes pre-1 to 12. So the scheme places special emphasis on inclusive and digital infrastructure, recognizing that quality education in the 21st century requires both physical accessibility and technological readiness. Provision for children with special needs, library development, sports equipment, and digital initiatives such as smart classroom and e-content development are all integrated within the schemes, this framework. The midday meal scheme running parallel to these educational scheme has its own infrastructure requirement, functional kitchen sets, storage facilities and utensils that directly affect children's nutrition and consequently their states, school attendance and cognitive performance. The Digital India initiative, though broader in scope, has a significant education component aimed at promoting digital literacy and ICT infrastructure in rural areas. Under this umbrella, programs such as PM eVidya, Diksha, that is the digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing, and the National Digital Library have been developed to bring digital learning resources to rural schools and students. The BharatNet, a government program to provide broadband connectivity to all Gram Panchayats, directly supports rural school connectivity through implementation quality and last mile access remain challenges in many states. There are many challenges which are there, though providing many government schemes. There are very many challenges the government or the community people have to face for rural educational infrastructure. Despite the significant progress made through government schemes and increased budgetary allocations to formidable set of challenges continues to constrain the development of rural educational infrastructure in India. So these challenges are structural, geographic, financial, and social in nature, and addressing them requires notioned, context sensitive interventions rather than one size fits all solutions. Financial constraints represent perhaps the most pervasive challenge. Funds allocated under centrally sponsored schemes are often delayed in disbursement, partially released, or subject to complex utilization conditions that local government and school struggle to navigate. States with weaker fiscal capacity are particularly vulnerable, leading to significant interstate disparities in infrastructure quality. Even when funds reach schools, the absence of locally available skilled contractors and materials inflates construction cost and compromises quality. Geographical barriers present a distinct set of difficulties in hilly, forested, flood prone, and desert terrains. Such schools in such areas face challenges in material transportation, difficult walking conditions for construction, frequent damage due to natural events, and higher per unit cost. So, remote villages may lack proper road connectivity, making school access difficult for both children and teachers, while also hindering supervision and maintenance visits by block and district officials. So these challenges are also presented in a gist in these pictures. You can see the challenges faced by the childrens or the teachers in schools. So this picture actually depicts the problems of education and infrastructure in rural areas. Now, the infrastructure and inclusive education. So, inclusive education is founded on the principle that every child, regardless of ability, gender, caste, religion, or socioeconomic background, has the right to quality education in a mainstream school setting. Achieving inclusive education, however, is not merely a matter of policy declaration. It requires deliberate investment in infrastructure that actively accommodate the diverse physical, sensory, cognitive, and social needs of all learners. Infrastructure is, in this sense, a material expression of society commitment to equity and social justice. The Samogra Shiksha Abhiyan, under its inclusive education component, provides grant for the construction of ramps, the purchase of assistive devices, and the appointment of special educators. However, implementation varies widely across states and districts, and the gap between what is mandated and what exists on the ground remains considerable. Truly inclusive infrastructure required not just physical modification but a school culture and community attitude that welcome and supports all learners unconditionally. So these are the you can see these are the pictures which shows the infrastructure and inclusive education scenario. Next comes the sustainable infrastructure in rural schools, because this is very important. If we talk about infrastructure, it should be sustainable infrastructure. So sustainability is not merely an environmental aspiration, it is an economic and operational necessity for rural schools. Infrastructure that depends on unreliable grid electricity, expensive fossil fuels, or scarce water resources is inherently fragile. When power cuts disable digital equipments, when water scarcity prevents school sanitation from functioning, or when extreme weather damages building constructed with inappropriate materials, learning is disrupted and investment are wasted. So, sustainable infrastructure, by contrast, is designed to function reliably over the long term, reducing dependency on external and often unpredictable inputs. So here comes the need of solar energy system, which represent one of the most promising sustainable infrastructure intervention for rural schools. Solar panels, once installed, provide reliable electricity for lighting, fans, and digital equipments at minimal operating cost, freeing schools from the vagaries of grid supply. Several state government and NGOs have piloted solar electrification of rural schools with encouraging results in terms of both energy reliability and cost saving over time. The National Solar Mission and PM Kusum scheme provide policy and financial support for such installation. So this you can see how in different schools the solar energy or the solar grid is working in different aspects. So these are some of the examples which are shown through these images. Now comes the role of community and local government. So here The sustainability and effectiveness of rural educational infrastructure depend not merely on what the government builds, but on whether communities own, maintain, and continuously improve these facilities. So, Panchayati Raj, India's constitutionally maintained system of local self-government, have crucial role to play in this school infrastructure development. So, these are the key communities actors like Panchayati Raj institutions, school management committees, public-private partnerships and NGOs, village communities and alumni. You can see here how these communities act as a key community actors for social development of social school infrastructure. So from this we can see not only the government but also the community role is very much important for the development of infrastructure in rural India. So from this we can end up with the session that dear learners, thank you for taking the time to watch this video on infrastructure and education in rural area. Your interest in understanding the relationship between infrastructure development and educational growth reflects your commitment to meaningful learning and social awareness. Rural education is deeply connected to the availability of basic facilities such as school buildings, electricity, digital connectivity, transportation, and sanitation. By exploring this topic, you have taken an important step towards understanding the challenges and opportunities that shape the educational experiences of millions of children in rural areas. I truly appreciate your engagement and thoughtful participation. Your willingness to learn about issues related to equity, access, and quality in education contributes to build a more informed and responsible academic community. So keep reflecting, questioning, and connecting these insights to real life context with best wishes for your continued learning. Thank you.